It's a new year, and that means we've got a new set of MCU projects coming our way. They've got a full slate. We got 2 movies, 3 live-action TV shows, 2 animated TV shows, and a special presentation. But which ones am I most excited for? Here's my ranking of all 8 MCU projects coming out in 2026, ranked by my excitement. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know what's your ranking of the 8 MCU projects coming out this year based on your excitement or anticipation. My list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I'd love to see yours. And let's get started. In last place, Vision Quest. This, to me, just feels like too little, too late. Where WandaVision came out 5 years ago. And they had White Vision fly off, and we have not referenced him since. It was just kind of like one of these dangling plot threads that they abandoned. And then 5.5 years later, like, oh, well, we're going to do a show to follow that up. But there have been no ramifications, implications, anything dealing with Vision for 5 years. And so it just feels like going back to something that I've moved on from. And with the cast involved, the characters, everything we know about it, it just feels like this little pocket thing over here. And that's kind of, for the most part, what I'm tired of in the MCU, of just these random things where they throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and the random ones, the disconnected ones, unless they're specifically to my taste, I'm just not interested at this point in time. Now, there are a couple things here that, based on borrowed trust, have my interest. Specifically, that the showrunner here is Terry Matalas, who did Picard Season 3, which I was a huge fan of. In addition to that, speaking of these Star Trek connections, he's described Vision's journey in this to Spock in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Which, if you're trying to like find some very random connection that'll make me go, what did you just say? Tying your MCU project to Star Trek 4, you have my attention. But without a trailer, without something else to kind of hook me a little bit more, I just need something more tangible to be excited about this, because I just feel like I've moved on from Vision. What are we doing here? Number 7, Wonder Man. And this kind of is in the same category of some of what I just said about Vision Quest, where Wonder Man feels like one of these random projects where they were just trying to come up with content to fill up Disney Plus and doing way too many just random pocket projects. And I feel like that was the wrong direction for the MCU, that diluted the brand, spread things thin. Their attention is in too many places. The story is too disconnected. And they're trying to correct that, but there's just a couple of these lingering projects that got greenlit several years ago that were too far into production to cancel them. So it's just like, we're doing a TV show about a guy with superpowers trying out for a TV show. Like, what? Where the second lead is Trevor, one of the least popular characters in the entire MCU, that is like a character that legitimately is the character that ruined an Iron Man movie for a bunch of people, but we keep coming back to him, and I just don't get it. Like, I don't get the project. I don't know, of all the things you could do with the MCU, of all the things that could help generate excitement, kind of this inside baseball look at Hollywood and casting in the realm of the MCU, just feels like such a strange niche project with such a limited appeal. So much of what made the MCU grow and be popular is that they made very broad appeal, 4-quadrant blockbusters that almost all of them were very accessible to a lot of people around the globe. And after phase 3, they started being like, all right, now let's make projects for really small groups of people. That's what this feels like to me. And I just don't get it. I don't think it's a good use of their time and resources. Once again, like with Vision Quest, there is something in here that gives me hope, or 2 things that give me hope. One is that Destin Daniel Cretton, the guy behind Shang-Chi, but more importantly, several movies before he joined the MCU. They're just on my wavelength. Like, he's a guy that I really enjoy what he does. He's doing Spider-Man later this year. So on borrowed trust, I have excitement. And if this project wasn't an MCU project and he just kind of did his own little thing over here that was looking at Hollywood, I'd actually be a lot more excited for it. If I watched this trailer and it wasn't for an MCU project, like, there's something to it of like looking at Hollywood that's kind of fun for me as someone that talks about movies for a living. But simply because it's an MCU project, I'm like, I don't want the MCU doing stuff like this. I don't want the niche, quirky, like, pocket things anymore. So for me, that's entirely what hurts this, despite maybe having a good script with some interesting commentary on Hollywood. I don't know what this thing is. Like, I don't get it. Even having seen several trailers now, that's the problem. Next up, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 2. I enjoyed Season 1. I thought it was well done. It's a fun little spin on Spider-Man. I like this kind of animation style. It's still kind of novel to me and interesting. And there's something fun about the way the show is essentially a what-if series where we're in one of the other timelines that is just slightly different from our own. It has enough overlap to where it's like, hey, it's like that thing I saw before, but different. But somewhat that's also why it kind of limits my interest in it, because when it was going to be actually Tom Holland prequel story doing Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man stuff before he's plugged into everything else, like that to me, when it's canonical, it's filling in a backstory. And as soon as it's not, it's just any other animated Spider-Man show to me. And at my age, I just have a certain amount of limited interest in an animated Spider-Man show, or animated show in general like this. I just don't have time for it. So the reason I'll watch it is because it's in the MCU, but that's kind of it. Like, and it's not because it's poorly done. There's just only so much time. There's only so many things I can be interested in. And I just have limited interest in a non-main timeline Spider-Man show, because every other animated Spider-Man show is that too. X-Men 97 Season 2. I really enjoyed X-Men 97. I am the perfect age for X-Men the animated series. They like the golden age of animation in many fronts. Disney Renaissance, perfect age. Batman the animated series, perfect age. X-Men the animated series, perfect age. Even to a lesser extent, but to some extent, the 1990s Spider-Man animated series, the perfect age. And so doing this revival series for it, to me, is like, wow, it's like my childhood is back again. And it captured that storytelling style that they did, that's like very dense, comic accurate, like storylines. A certain way that it kind of tells them in, like, it's tough to describe it without feeling like it's a criticism, because it's not, but kind of like rushes through these stories and has like dense mythology. That's what they always did, but were like very accurate to the characters, the comics, and everything like that. And they captured that energy again. There's actual stakes, characters dying, epic storytelling. So really cool stuff. But somewhat what I just said about Spider-Man as well. I'm dramatically more excited for X-Men because of the ties to a show that meant a lot to me growing up and was foundational for my love of comic book stuff. But specifically, my love for X-Men comes from X-Men the animated series, and that has become like this huge part of so much of what I do for a living. So it means a lot to me. But like I said with Spider-Man, an animated show just isn't as interesting to me. I can't, there's not a lot of examples where an animated show connects with me in my mid-40s the way that a live action show does. Just, that's the truth, the reality of it. I connect more with live action, generally speaking, and that's true here too. So I'm excited for it, but a bunch of this live action stuff just is of greater interest to me. And the stuff on the rest of this list are pretty heavy hitters too. Number 4, Daredevil Born Again Season 2. If not for a trailer that dropped just a few days ago, a little teaser trailer, this probably would have been number 3 on the list, but they sold me on a bunch of nostalgia just a few days ago for another project coming out in the near future. But Daredevil, the original 3-season run on Netflix is probably my favorite show of the last decade. I just adored Daredevil on Netflix. When they announced they were doing a continuation, I was very excited. And then they announced who was doing it, and I saw a bunch of red flags. And then they said, this thing's kind of sucks. We're going to reshoot it, rework it. Gigantic red flags. And the final product that we got did the best job they could building off a deeply flawed foundation. That the original creators, whatever was going on in that original version of it, I think they had some disastrous ideas, and the new team came in and did the best they could, cleaning things up. And so it was a very mixed season for me with some really cool highs, but just so held back by some horrible decisions that were made. That was like, it basically turned it into fan casting Charlie Cox in their own show. That like they were trying as hard as they could in the original version to not be a continuation, which is like, you're morons. It's insulting to me to do that. It actively insulting because you're trying to take advantage of the fact that there's something that a bunch of us love, and you want to borrow that trust, but you want to do your own thing and not respect that you're continuing something that we love. You want the power of that, but without the responsibility of it, which is gross. They tried to fix that. So the other thing that kind of holds this one back is we didn't get enough of like a clean version of what the new creative team wants to do, because it was so course corrective that there's just question marks. Best case scenario, this thing's going to be awesome and feel like the true continuation that we wanted. They set up what could be some very cool things at the end of the last season. There's a lot of promise there. And if you remove just the dumb stuff that they don't have to course correct anymore, this could be amazing. Or it just could be a project that was always going to be broken from the get-go because they made disastrous choices on. I don't know. I really, really hope that I get something that approaches what I loved about those first 3 seasons. And dives into the great character work and isn't afraid of that, isn't trying to... I'm just so baffled by whatever they were doing in that first version, or why they hired the covert affairs people to do it. Just insanity of the bizarre mismanagement of the MCU last five. It just leaves so many questions in my mind. I really, 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 really want this thing to be awesome. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the upcoming MCU projects ranked by your excitement. Also, I did a video just a few days ago with my most anticipated movies of 2026. And I got a couple more things coming up next week, in particular one where I'm going to predict the box office of all the big movies this next year. Did that last year, and that was a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to doing it again. In third, Avengers Doomsday. I've voiced a lot of concerns over this project simply because very obviously it's a course correction movie. Obviously, they were doing something different with a different creative team and a different villain, and many things weren't working. And so this is a course correction, and there's a lot of choices to it that scream desperation. That as soon as you go, we're going to bring back our biggest star, our biggest hero as the villain, you immediately go, that feels desperate. And when you market it on, hey, look who's coming back, and not your story. Hey, look at all these characters in it. Look at all these chairs. That's a desperation move. It's a key jangling move. It's not selling people on a story. It's selling them on nostalgia entirely. Nostalgia isn't bad, but if that's all you have, that's a gimmick. And you're taking advantage of your audience at a certain point in time. Flip side to that, what directors have the best track record in the MCU? The Russos. Without question, by a lot. And you're bringing back your directors with the best track record. On borrowed trust, that's amazing. Bringing back, likewise, one of the writers of also a high percentage of the top 10 best MCU films were written by, this is one of the writers of those projects, likewise the director of those projects. There's a lot of borrowed trust that's really cool there. I don't feel like they've done the proper setup for this movie, which I've voiced a million times before. I have my concerns. But as I just alluded to in the Daredevil section, I'm lying if I didn't say that that X-Men trailer gave me the nostalgia feels. Did the trick work? Did they jangle the keys? And I went, woo! Yes, it worked. Will the movie be a good movie? I don't know. Will it be a good experience? What I think they'll be able to pull off at least a very cool experience. I hope this is an event rivaling Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War, whatever your favorites are. I hope it's an event rivaling them. I think realistically, I think it's going to be a movie that's like a cool fan event more so than a great story. I think that's probably a more realistic expectation given the amount of work they have to do with the movie and the size of the cast. But, you jangle those keys and I go, man, comic accurate Cyclops doing James Marsden justice. Two old men, Charles Xavier, Magneto holding hands, smiling. Like you're hitting the nostalgia buttons just right. And there's so much more. Fantastic Four. Like there's so many more things to it that it's like a fan event. It could be very cool. I just have a hard time imagining it having the emotional highs and true storytelling satisfaction. Like that's the piece that some people I think are missing out of this. The reason that Infinity War Endgame were so satisfying is that they were the payoff and culmination of 20 movies worth of storytelling. 10 years worth of storytelling was paid off with characters that we love. And you can't do that if you haven't set that up. And so all you have left, like you can tell a good story in and of itself, and you can do nostalgia and be very satisfying, like No Way Home. But it's not the same thing as an Endgame, which paid off character arcs, teases, setup. You can't do it if you didn't set it up. You can't do it if you haven't been on a journey with these characters. That's the thing that's missing here, to where like just have limitations on how good I think this movie can be compared to previous Avengers movies. Our runner-up, Spider-Man Brand New Day. And the thing I really appreciate about this project is that they're coming off by far the most successful Spider-Man movie of all time. And they went, let's take our time and do it right. They didn't say, all right, strike while the iron's hot, let's crank another one out in 2 years. Not even in 3 years. It'll be 5 years. Like they really took their time and went, let's do it right. Let's find a story that fits, that works. And I respect that. And they're going with Destin Daniel Cretton, the guy that did Shang-Chi. We talked about him earlier. Also did movies like The Glass Castle, which is a movie that I just thought was just a great drama that really connected with me personally. And I resonated with it on an emotional level. And so he's just a director on my wavelength that loves a lot of the things that I love. Like what was cool about Shang-Chi is his love for Hong Kong martial arts, and it celebrated multiple different styles. That's my background. And he did that. So he's dramas that connect with me emotionally. He loves some of the same practical action that I love. And now he's doing Spider-Man, a top comic book character that we all love. That's just a great combination. Adding to that, we got Punisher joining in. I don't know how that'll work. I don't know how you bring John Bernthal Punisher and be true to him in Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. But at the moment, I can just get excited at the possibilities of it. If you don't know, Punisher was first introduced in the Spider-Man comic. So how does this all work? What's it going to look like? I don't know. But it's a bunch of things that I love merging together, and they took their time to try and do it right. And Cretton was supposed to do Avengers Kang Dynasty. So that collapses. He loses directing an Avengers movie. His consolation prize, just the Spider-Man movie following up No Way Home. Poor guy. Like that. I think that's a better job than Avengers, because with an Avengers movie, it's basically Marvel the movie. It's going to be a massive, of course, but a Spider-Man movie is also going to be a massive event that everyone's going to remember. You're going to have your mark on history if you do a Spider-Man movie as a filmmaker. But with a Spider-Man movie, you can tell a much more personal story. You can put your touch on it a lot more than you can do with an Avengers movie that has a cast of 7,000 characters. And so I think it's a better job for him. That's the better, that I think he'll be able to shine so much more with a Spider-Man movie than he could have done with Kang Dynasty. But coming in at number one, I'm going to go with the Punisher special presentation. And perhaps some of the reason for this is kind of sheer novelty without any of the reservations that I have on some of my other top projects here. Like Spider-Man, I've already seen 3 movies with Tom Holland. So there's a little bit of, and of course he's also been in Avengers projects, Captain America. So it maybe loses a little bit of the novelty there. And then I have my reservations about Daredevil in Avengers. But I can just pretend like all is perfect and wonderful with a Punisher special presentation. I haven't seen that in the MCU. I really like the special presentations, and I wish they did more of them. And I think Punisher does well in much tighter situations or as the side character. When you try and tell a story out of Frank Castle, who is kind of like a set worldview, when you have a lead character that you don't want him to have a bunch of growth and change. There's storytelling limitations. And so the fun of him is the carnage candy of letting him just go in and do his thing. And a special presentation where you don't need to fill 2 hours. You don't have to be an epic that sells $500 million worth of movie tickets, where it's like this tight little thing designed for carnage candy action fans that have bloodlust, that want to see Frank do his thing and destroy dudes. Special presentation gives you the opportunity to do that. And so I'm very curious as to what this thing is going to be, how it's going to work, the way that John Bernthal's described it, the control that he's had, the way that he wants to be true to the character and the harshness, the brutality. Love all of that. So it has the advantage of having, when I have so little information about it, then I don't have room for concerns about it. The lack of information is certainly to its benefit in the case of this one, but as someone that loves the Punisher, and when this version of the Punisher is awesome, absolutely love this version. I think like on his own TV show at times, I think that because he was the lead, they had to put him into it made it like a spy government conspiracy theory show, that it was like too much of this other stuff and not enough Frank with a machine gun mowing down mobsters. In a special presentation, you don't have to worry about like exhausting the audience. It's 45 minutes. You want it to just be brutal, bam, 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 mowing dudes down, credits roll. So for me, I'm hoping for some absolute carnage candy from Frank Castle later this year, so it comes in at number 1. As I always say, my list is not the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your ranking of this year's MCU projects based on your excitement level. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV.